Hi, everybody, and welcome to Best Podcast Ever, where three idiots you don't know talk about a hobby you've never heard of. And for the first time in a long time, that's not a lie, Kevin's back. It's the real Kevin.
Yay.
Hi.
There he is.
All that build-up, like 4 episodes when you were in here.
I just stood up. That, like, my idea was supposed to be, will the real captain stand up?
Well, we're all captain.
But, like, the real captain.
You're only the real captain in your mind.
I started the team.
Anyway.
I left the team. I refounded the team.
All of that is true.
Put my name on some websites.
Yeah.
You didn't put your name on anything, Mike did.
It's like a stamp of approval.
And even that, I
look
look back on it, and I really left that largely unfinished because the challenge snuck up on us last fall. But anyway.
I hit the easy button.
You hit Mike?
Yeah.
So anyway, what we're talking about today, if you can't already tell by our bickering, this is going to be a great episode, is we wanted to go into the actual competitive scene of slot car racing. HO 132nd, the thing that started Best Team Ever, and the thing that destroyed Best Team Ever.
Yes. And we also alluded to the existence of our website, which has been there all along, and we've never thought to direct you to it because there isn't much on it right now, but that is about to change. Yeah, well, the best laid plans currently are laid as we're going to start actually posting some content
as
on
we
there.
pave the road to hell,
Yeah.
brick by brick.
Good intention.
Pardon me.
So yes, at bestteamever.info, and you can tell how not Mickey Mouse we are by the .info URL.
We're not even Betty Boop.
No, Mitchy Mouse, perhaps. Those public domain cartoons that your grandmother bought you at CVS on VHS.
Which is like unknown foreign cartoons that were poorly dubbed, or the really racist Looney Tune episodes.
The abandoned Looney
lapse.
Tunes, yeah. The abandoned Looney Tunes is a staple of those. But anyway, check it out over the next couple weeks. We're going to start trying to post some slot car reviews, a little bit of history of real cars that got turned into slot cars. And
Slot cars that got turned into real cars.
Yes.
Does that mean I have to actually start doing the history of the slot car companies because I'm the idiot who knows that?
Yeah, you're the one who knows that stuff. Just cut and paste your term paper. You'll be fine.
Yeah, Mike jokes, but I did actually end up writing, God, I think that was like 20 pages long, and that's a lot for a high school student on Aurora, the entire rise and fall of that company.
That is a lot.
It is a lot. I'm sure it's terrible, too, because, A, I am dyslexic, so any amount of writing is like pulling teeth. And B, I was a teenager, and I don't know if, you guys agree, but teenagers are bad at everything.
Yeah, they are. Unless any of you are listening, in which case, thank you, and you're terrific.
Whoa. You're a teenager and you're listening to this? Does any of this make sense to you? Are you entertained by any of this?
Like, share, and subscribe.
Are you not entertained?
Click the bell.
I mean, although, getting back to the topic, as far as, competitive...
Russell Crowe body movement for all of you waiting for it.
Oh my god, it's like kryptonite, so we get back on the topic.
Hey, now we can tag Russell Crowe.
So, we wanted to talk...
I was going to go at him.
There we go.
Okay.
Fuck you, Russell Crowe.
Settling down. I'm brandishing a stick right now, by the way.
You go ahead and hit the computer. That's good for it.
So we're going to talk a little bit about competitive racing. We actually, quite by accident, did some of that about a week ago. It's as if we are some sort of racing team.
As if we had some sort of hobby we all enjoyed and like to do.
Besides this show. The three of us had not actually raced together in probably...
Since 132, probably the last 132.
Yeah,
race.
towards the end of... March, I guess, was the last time we had all raced together. So right before we started doing the show, yeah. So it was good to get back in the saddle. Some of us didn't shatter any cars. Some of us did shatter any cars.
Some of us shattered our car on a chassis that never would have been legal to run on.
Yes.
Purchased at NJ Hobby.
Well, no.
It was a great car.
You purchased the parts at NJ Hobby. There's a 0% chance you bought that chassis as stock with those magnets in the back.
That car was bought as is.
that does not equal stock.
Well, I wasn't told that at the time. It was just like, hey, you should buy this car. It's fast, and it came that way at the time. That was years ago.
That was years ago, and I'm positive he didn't sell it to you as a stock car, because if he sold it to you as a stock car, he wouldn't have been able to charge you as much.
Well, it was a Tomy Turbo, so let's face it, I wasn't planning on racing it at all at the time against anything.
Yeah, but there's a picture that, again, I'm going to try and goad Mike into adding a secondary picture to the podcast.
Yeah.
And that might even should be, like, the only picture of this podcast.
Instead of having the title up for the full episode.
Yeah, we can go ahead and change to the remnants of Kevin's Tomy Turbo, which was which car in reality?
Ferrari.
It was a Ferrari
Pile at that point.
Pile. I mean, I don't know what year that turbo came out, but I'm going to say it was probably like a Ferrari 641, like the late 80s Ferrari F1 car, although it didn't look anything like it. So. And
it proceeded to just fly into a wall.
And it shattered.
It was fast, too.
Hence the shattering.
So, and that's a joke we saved for a video series that's not going to come out, that those like little Indy F1 cars, and Indy F1 is something we've gone over a lot, like, they have the longevity of a real open-wheel car.
Yeah.
One crash, and you're waiting for your birthday or Christmas for your next sweet hit of Tycho goodness.
Yeah, I mean, so Brian and I were racing we were racing Tychos, which means we were racing Chaparrals. I was racing a Penske, and Brian was racing a Chapalola. And you get one race out of them, basically. I mean, I sheared both front wings off the Penske and had to go to my backup body, because that's the thing you need when that's what you're racing. Brian sheared one during the race.
That was actually that body's third race. It lasted a surprising amount of time.
Yeah, that was the second race for my Rick Mears Penske body. That took me back, though, to the third and fourth slot cars I had, which was the twin pack of the Domino Chapalola for Alonso Jr. and the Craco Chapa March for Michael Andretti. And my older cousin was racing with me on my Tycho Figure 8 Richard Petty racing set. And the first time I ever had a slot car broken was that. He ran the Domino's car into the uprights of the Tycho guardrail, which worked just as well as hitting the uprights of real Armco, and the wing was gone. And he said, "Why don't we race the NASCARs? They're sturdier." And
narrow pan?
Yeah, narrow pan NASCARs. 440s, not even X2s. Sponge tires also.
How would you like bar magnet?
I had the STP Buick and the Monroe Oldsmobile.
So to take us slightly off our topic of like high end giant air quotes racing, and to take a step quickly into the minds of Tycho during the 440 era, because that was really their second to last chassis, the original 440 Magnum, before the 440 X2 Magnum came out.
It's two Dodge L-head V8s next to each other. Times two.
And people might wonder, and by that I mean people who know Tycho might wonder why a company that was known for really stretching a mold would redo their chassis.
Well, all they redid was the bulkhead. The rear bulkhead is the only part that's different on the chassis.
The front end was a little different too. Because the original 440 was lower and used ski shoes, whereas the 440 Magnum used steps.
That's right.
And essentially, it was just they didn't understand how permanent magnets worked.
Yes, that's correct.
And they were just terrible at it. And you might stop and ask yourself, how could a company whose toy is dependent on the magnets in the car being attracted to the iron in the rails?
Yeah.
What you have to realize, until it was like 30 years in the hobby when the Tomy AFX came out, when they realized that, magnets are attracted to iron, and before that it was just black magic that they were still trying to master.
Yeah.
There are Atlas cars where they were putting lead on top of the car.
Just to make it heavier.
To try and weigh it down.
We're going to raise the center of gravity. Anyone out there who has ever, noticed that SUVs handle worse than cars might know that making something top heavy does not help the handling.
I bet if you put the wheels outside the body, you go faster.
Oh, man.
Oh, your Suburban's an Indy car.
an indie. It's an indie. It's an indie. We do have the part of that video actually.
Oh, you rolled your Suburban and the fenders came off. Now it's an indie.
Kick out the windshield and open the rear doors for maximum airflow. Thanks, Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes.
If only we had that level of Lemon's car, this would be a much different podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, to hop back to the racing aspect of it, that was the first race we had done, and really the race, and I was joking about it earlier, the race that created Best Team Ever and the race that killed Best Team Ever.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it was the shootout.
The V-Horse shootout.
And now it is the Ecor Challenge.
Yep.
So essentially, why are we a team? When slot car racing, you might understandably associate
as an individual sport.
Yeah, sport, again, giant air quotes.
No, it's a sport. We're a sports team. Our Facebook page says it.
Official sports team.
If we ever get that blue check mark next to our name, I'll call us official.
We'll change it to something else. We could sell knives or Cutco or something like that and actually have some sort of customer base.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, actually, you guys who are theoretically listening to our podcast, if you want to spread the word and have us actually hit, any number of subscribers and listeners, the first thing we need to buy with the Best Team Ever money is Kevin a computer.
If you get us paid on YouTube, we'll pay you back.
No, we won't.
No, we won't. But yeah, the Ecor Challenge is a team race, and the way it works is you have X number of people on a team. I think the minimum is 6?
4.
No, 4.
You can have a team of 4.
You can have a team of 4 if you really wanted to.
If you want to have,
which we did in the first year.
Were we a 4-man team?
Yeah, you didn't remember. You couldn't make the second day.
Oh, that's right.
Oh yeah.
Brian was only present for the individual event.
But we had a Brian to fill your spot.
That's enough of that.
Over and over and over again.
Fill several of my spots. Anyway, and then we did that race for 2 years.
2 years. And then we ran far, far away.
And then the Best Team Ever survived without us for 1 year. Somehow. We won't get into that.
Yeah.
But then Best Team Ever came back triumphantly a grand total of a year ago?
Yeah,
Probably 2 years.
2 years ago.
When did you redo the logo? That's really the
when
BTE 2.0.
So it was the summer of 2015 when we started talking about doing the 2016 challenge. And that was when I updated the logo, made a less crappy version of it. And started talking about shirts, which we then barely had in time for the challenge because we couldn't agree on anything.
Best. Those were the best shirts I've ever seen at a challenge.
They also make a really good beach shirt, as I learned, because they're mostly white.
That's true.
They're really bad to spill stuff on, though.
Yes, because it will never come out.
Again, because it's mostly white.
Especially when all we do is eat chicken parm.
We eat chicken parm and deal with vintage oils.
Yes.
The only thing more dangerous than having a flash paper collection.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Best Team Ever. I don't think Best Team Ever is going to be in any team events for the foreseeable future, because that really just beat us.
That was a long day.
Yeah, well, we didn't
I don't know if
realize...
it's going to be a challenge.
Really?
When we were there for the last one.
It might have been.
I guess they decided that it peaked at getting us to come back, and there was no point in ever doing it
The
again.
BTE reunion tour was too much.
The anniversary race got canceled this August already.
To celebrate the anniversary of the last anniversary race?
I don't know.
What is it the anniversary of?
It's like the anniversary of Ecor.
Oh.
Anyway. Funny thing, new topic. So, when you get into that level of racing, because we've talked a lot about home racing recently.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a lot about setting up your track at home and the natural evolution of that, which is you don't race anymore.
Yeah, you sit around talking about it.
You sit around talking about racing, rather. In fact, we all could have raced tonight.
Yeah.
At our preferred racing location.
We'd much rather talk about the good old days.
What races?
It was supposed to be the GT team race that turned into 4 people just racing their GT cars.
For 200 laps.
Wow.
I had a good car for that.
We all have good cars for that, but again, we are evolving in the natural progression of a slot car enthusiast, where you go from, hey, this is cool, hey, I'm doing this out of some sort of, responsibility to do so,
right,
to, hey, we're going to talk about it, and That's something we make fun of, but we all legitimately do enjoy race cars. We do enjoy slot cars. We do enjoy this. But you get to a point where and Mike made this joke last week, you start to just own things so that other people can't.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. That's the hobby. I mean,
I bought that car tonight for that exact reason. I mean, I didn't really need it.
Any collecting hobby is essentially that, right? I mean, if you think about it, if you collect anything, whether it's trading cards or slot cars or real cars, I mean, when you put your thing in a case, as it were,
and don't use it on a common basis,
occasionally wave somebody into your house and say, "Look at this thing I have that I don't use." What you're really saying to that person is, "You can't use it either."
You can't. And even if you would, use it.
And even if you wanted to use it, I wouldn't let you. Maybe I will let myself use it when you leave. Otherwise, stay in the case.
Or the only reason I'm using this is to show you that I have it, and then put it back when you leave and never touch it again.
We talked about this a little bit on the last episode, where everybody wants to be the museum guy. Everybody wants to have the complete collection, which we've established is impossible.
Right.
But especially with slot cars and...
Your fake Hooters are so lifelike.
Those of you stuck around for that.
For that one joke that all three of us got.
The highlight of the episode.
Yeah.
As always.
Can we talk more about the generator?
Well, let's
it powers slot car tracks in your basement.
If I ever saw a generator-powered slot car track, that would be a magical time.
First of all, that would require slot car racers to be outdoors, which...
Well...
No, we're talking about the indoor generator here. Unventilated.
Well, you guys joke, but a common method of powering a slot car track is using car batteries.
Yes, because you get 12 volts.
Yeah, but you always look under the tracks that use car batteries as their power supply, and it's always been, eaten to dust from the lead acid.
Yeah.
So,
terrible idea.
Yeah, there's been a lot of really great ideas in the slot car industry.
AC adapter, what's that? There's no way to convert AC to DC. I just need to use batteries.
I guess you even have them on a trickle charge?
You must, because I guess you hook a battery tender up to it.
So what did you accomplish?
You could actually just hook the battery tender directly up to the track. It would give you a 12-volt trickle.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have the amperage.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Yeah, so I guess they're just using it as some sort of amp bucket.
Yeah, but how many amps does it give out, though? A TJet only uses half an amp.
Yeah, but at the same time, I've seen upwards of 6 of these batteries.
Oh, the commercial tracks, they still run car batteries.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. These days, there's so many better ways to do it. In fact, my dad held on to, and you guys remember that, terrible power supply NJ Hobby used to use. That was a vintage...
Had it forever, yeah.
Yeah, that was a vintage power supply that was specifically made for slot car racing.
Were there tubes in that thing?
Yep.
Yeah. I was going to say, there's no way that was solid state back then. I'm surprised it wasn't a rotary converter.
No, it was tubes.
Take up the entire room.
He had paid to have the tubes replaced.
Yeah.
And then he was going essentially to pay to have it entirely gutted.
Yeah.
And then just remade to keep the original chassis.
Yeah.
When our essentially handyman who does all that stuff for us just gave us a power supply. He's just use this. It's so much better and done, and I don't have to deal with it, and I don't have to keep trying to fix this one power supply.
Because now you have a solid state power supply like everything on the planet has had for the last 40 years. So...
But it's not traditional.
Why does the blue lane still have power drop?
So...
You have selected power drop.
Really... and this actually is tying into the theme of today's episode with quote-unquote high-end professional whatever racing.
Winning.
Bitching about half an amp drop on a lane.
The track was wired forever ago by, a guy, the owner of NJ Hobby, and another one of the owner's friends.
Who is also a guy.
Yeah. And essentially it was wired so long ago that it's running through the floor. And that was done because the fire marshal came, and we used to just have a bump in the carpet, and they told us we couldn't do that. So it had to get wired through the basement and then come up into where the power is. Mm-hmm. So already,
I remember that hump on the floor. Yeah,
we're making a lot of assumptions. We're making the assumptions that the lines that run the power from the supply
down to the floor,
which is a dirt floor basement,
right,
into that basement and comes back up through the floor, are still as good as when we made them.
Right. So, which is over 10 years ago now.
And then if you ever look at the bottom of NJ Hobby's track, it looks like the door of like a truck stop, of a truck stop bathroom. Because there's been more than one electrical guy down there trying to make sense of it all.
Right. And because how many taps are there in the track, too? There's multiple.
More than there should be.
More than there need to be, honestly.
Because essentially what happened is it was wired once, just straight up hardwired for the tub track.
Right.
Because it was assumed the tub track would be the only track there ever. And then the 132nd track came.
Right.
And it was just soldered in because we didn't know when the tub was coming
back.
Summer
season, yeah.
And it turns out the tub was never coming back.
Yes.
So then it had to turn to essentially lance heads to go from a 132nd track to an HO track and back and forward.
Should have probably put quick disconnects in there at some point instead of the spade terminals.
And then they did put quick test disconnect terminals in there, but they didn't take anything down.
Oh my god!
Except
there's
it was
a lot of same colored wire underneath.
That is true, actually.
So if again going back to why it looks like a truck stop door, there's notes that electricians would leave up there, and then there's like they're crossed out and recircled.
Now let me point this out. I am a complete idiot when it comes to any sort of engineering whatsoever, as far as actually applying anything to reality. I can tell you how something works, but I can't actually make it happen very well. I have now hardwired 2 slot car tracks in my life, and I've never had an issue.
I have to assume that's because of the lack of
complexity.
Yeah.
I mean, this track only has 1 power tap. The other one actually has 2, and I never had an issue. I guess what I'm saying is I think somebody probably needs to go under there, rip everything out, and start over.
We've actually done that more than once as well. And
well, there's one guy that always knows what's going on. It's just if he can
be there. Yeah. It's a mix of that. We always have to see who's just available to fix it. Yeah. And from there, sometimes these weird things happen. Weird things happen because it is a public track. Because people show up with these mystery controllers.
Well, that is true.
Yeah. And it's still running fuses. It's not running switches.
Right.
So when the fuse blows, it's an actual slow blow fuse, which I'm sure is not good for wiring.
Right. Right, yes. Let's let the wires get hot. That's good.
There's a lot of silly things going on there, too.
Stuff gets unpacked on it.
Stuff gets unpacked on it. Stuff gets pushed around underneath it.
Those rails have never been sanded.
Well, it keeps it fresh. So yeah, that's a public track, which is a lot different than your private track. Although it used to be the public tracks and the tracks you went to like events would be the biggest tracks you would normally race on. That's before the slot car enthusiasts really evolved to the point where they were even starting to buy multiples of the routed tracks.
Yeah.
Which is where these giant racing organization, Equors, Vhors, Frey, come from.
Right.
Because everybody would bring their tracks to these events, and you would race, getting it all the way back to the top, like 10 minutes later. Essentially, there'd be 6 or 8 tracks in... we were in an auction hall this last time.
Yeah.
And you...
I got kicked out of a fire hall one year for drinking.
And starting fires.
Yeah, and doing a lot of things. We get kicked out a lot.
But if it weren't for, well, not just me in that year, but it wouldn't have come back to Pennsylvania last year or the year before if it weren't for that.
Fair point. It worked out.
Which, in a way, have brought BTE back.
Yeah, that was what got us to do it, because it had been in Maryland for a number of years, and I wasn't
we got kicked out of there. That was bad.
So.
But yeah, you have these tracks, and you have 2 people driving and 2 people marshalling, and then the rest of your team sitting like a lump going like, man, I wish I was good enough to drive.
Yep.
And there's
I mean, I had that thought a number of times, but then every time I was driving, I was like, man, I wish I was sitting over there instead of making an ass of myself. So.
Well, no, the problem with me is because you only get 1 heat per lane in this particular event, and it was IROC.
The learning curve is a brick wall.
The learning curve is a brick wall. You only get 1 chance to do good.
Yeah.
And then you don't get any chance after that. And there is like a 50% chance that you tie.
Yeah.
Because there's only 3 options for scoring. There's one team got 1, 2.
Yep.
Then there's one team got 1, the other team got 2, one team got 3, got 4, which is a tie.
Right. That's
actually wait. Those are
there's only 2.
There's only 2 options. It's either somebody swept it or it was a tie.
Yeah.
Which again, that just makes it really silly. In
my
opinion.
No, there's the 2 and the 4. Like if you finish second and 4.
But that's a tie though. 1 and 2
If
and
you
3
finished
and 4.
second and fourth, then the other team would have finished
Oh,
first
yeah,
and
yeah,
third.
yeah, it's a tie.
And
Oh,
split
that's
the
simple
difference.
math. I messed that up.
Yeah. So yeah, every race is either a win or a push. Yeah.
And that's that league, and that's, you know, where we went, where we were racing, and it's been like that for a while, but that's why Best Team Ever is a team, because there is a team event.
Yes.
It's not some sort of secret club, as we've been accused of.
Yeah, we're not trying to keep other people out. Like, we actually do race. We're not just making T-shirts to make T-shirts and fake Facebook pages.
No, that's true.
Pretty much be trolls.
Kevin, we missed you.
Yeah.
We have the battle scars on some of our boxes of actual team events.
Suck
true.
oh no. So, speaking of a Fray memory, they were handing out, for reasons I don't understand, free Sunoco stickers.
Yeah, here's the reason why. If you're holding an event and you need, if you feel the need to have a gift bag at the end, what you do, or what you can do, is go to local businesses and say, do you have any promotional products we can just take and give out? And they'll say, sure, why not? So I assume they stopped at a Sunoco station on the way. And it was when they were doing those Sunoco official fuel of NASCAR stickers where, like, if it was on your car and, like, someone was there and saw you or whatever, you could win something.
You'd get like a $25 gift card, like
Yeah.
Homer Simpson chasing with his giant penguin on his...
So they were it was during that promotion, so they had a buttload of stickers there, and they just were like, well, I'm going to put these on all my 25 cars I own, and ran out of the gas station. So that was the giveaway item. One of the giveaway items.
And then we had altered one. We had altered two of them. One said "suck oh no,"
Yes.
and the other one said "suck one."
Yeah, which is much better, actually.
What was
But
the other sticker they gave out? My other car is a slot car or something?
Probably.
Or like, my other car is a T-Jet?
I have.
My other jet is a Thunder jet. That's for those of you that have your private jet. You can stick it on there.
And so you get ripped off in Mach 5. Actually, one of the main reasons I feel like you go to those events is to get that little plaque, the...
Yeah, last year they gave out pens, right?
No, we got a plaque.
Oh, the little participant plate.
TC pen.
Yeah, the little
red plaque.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That one was...
We got pens one year, though.
I kind of missed the metal plaques of...
Well, the red and white one works on brand, though, because the owner of NJ Hobby is making a BTE shadow box.
Oh,
At one challenge...
I was supposed to send him the logo a week ago, because he was going to...
I'm sure he will be listening to this and remember to...
Hey, Joe, I'm going to send you that thing.
He's totally not shaking his head furiously right now.
So here's a fun fact about the E-Core Challenge. I was the only person, or anything like that, to win a race.
Something like a person.
I was the only person to ever win a money race where there was a cash prize.
Well, I'm pretty sure they learned not to do that immediately because individually you are one of the higher...
Oh, I murdered
racers.
everyone in that race.
Yeah.
For $50 and a mug with E-Core on it. Super Tire dished out the money for that.
Oh.
That's actually...
That was actually really cool. They were willing to dish out more money.
So, I can actually speak to why a lot of companies, and not just slot car companies, because I have worked in the toy industry before, are super hesitant for cash out prizes. Mm-hmm. It really does encourage kind of spiky nature, which slot car already has a problem with to begin with.
Yep.
And for those of you who are lucky enough to have never had to deal with a slot car meta, a spike is somebody who, like, shows up out of the blue and is like, I'm not here to have fun. I'm going to just win and win my cash prize and go home.
Stop your boo-hooing.
Yeah. Literally that.
Tears are fuel to my fire to victory.
Literally that.
I oiled my car with your tears. Your fear powers my DC power supply.
The electrolytes of your tears convert the electricity. Conduct the electricity to my car.
And it's totally not the battery in your handle.
What's that blast relay doing on your person? Are you just happy to see me? What's that clicking coming from the controller terminal? I've seen that before. I've seen that before at the store in box stock.
controllers are really weird, and all of us use the same controller.
Except that guy that was
Except
in
I-
a microwave that time.
I mean, yeah. We use different generations of the same controller. I'm still on the Gen 1, but...
Gen 2.
Gen 2.
Gen 1 had all the individual
That's
switches.
What's this one? Is that a 3?
Yours is a Gen 3, I think.
Oh, I
That's
forgot about that.
That's the old body, but yeah, the board is newer. After
I forgot
fried
about the Gen 1 board with all the little switches
Yeah,
on
no,
it.
this is the Gen 3.
That has to be, because I had a 1, then
Yeah.
2 2s, and then that 3.
Yeah, so I just got a Gen 3 too. And speaking, now we can actually talk what the controller is now that we've danced around the topic for some unknown reason for 30 seconds. We all run Professor Motor controllers. We're running not the highest end one, we're running a mid-range model. It's the only one NJ Hobby carries. I think it's the 1102. Essentially, it's just 125 to 25 ohm variable controller with a variable brake.
Yeah.
And that range is great for HO racing. It's particularly good for 132nd racing. In my opinion, that's a better 132nd controller than it is an HO controller.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
I can't think it gives you enough resistance.
So when
That
we
works.
first started racing in 2007, we were the only guys with Professor Motor controllers there.
Yes.
And we were...
Oh, I didn't even have one
We
for-
were looked
at that
weirdly
time,
at
yeah.
that at first, because everyone was running resistor controllers and nitros. And so over the years of me going, when there wasn't a challenge BTE team, Professor Motor started progressing as in like probably the preferred controller, even by separate clubs, and everyone started using Professor Motor controllers to race the super stocks with. It was really weird to see that, because we used to like almost be looked down
Yeah.
upon for that.
Well,
Our reputation
they
in that small
forever
community was
designed
in doubt.
as a 132nd controller, even to this day.
Oh yeah, no, that's. I mean, that's Professor
Yeah.
Motor's focus in general is 132nd.
Because-
I mean, everything they make is for 132nd.
I definitely remember I replaced my old controller not because it stopped working 132nd. It was a fine 132nd controller, but it just stopped working for some unknown reason for HO.
Yeah.
And they couldn't diagnose it because they're like, it works in 132nd.
Yeah.
Ships it back to Brian, charging him $30.
It was just nice though, because I feel like if you race different cars, different classes, you see people fuddling around with different controllers, and you're like, oh man,
Well,
I can't get used to that. I can't
that's-
get used to this.
That's the way it used to be, because for the longest time I was a holdout and I didn't have a Professor Motor controller. I just had a box in the back of NJ Hobby that had a 15, 10, 25, a 25, 35, 45, a 35, 45, 60,
The only-
a 60, 80, 90, and a like 100, 115, 125.
I remember when those high ohm controllers started coming out, which, I mean, those were just the Parma controllers with different resistors in them. Because I had been running a 25, 35, 45 for everything.
Well, yeah, because you started racing in the Magnet League.
Right, I started racing Tycos mostly. And then a 70 ohm controller came out, and it was like, oh, 70 ohm controller. 70 ohm controller is perfect for TJ, so 70 ohms and 70 ohms.
And then it just became 90 ohms, and it kind of petered out at a $125. That seems to be the highest you want to go.
Yeah.
Because after that, it's just like marshmallow controller.
Right.
Yeah.
I use it on off switch, and I keep it in the off position. It's infinity ohms.
Infinite resistance. That is a puck. You have a hockey puck.
So speaking of racing and resistance, where do you like the controller at? Where do you like the trigger at on your controller? Where do you like the meat of it to come on at?
Honestly, I want.
Are you on off switch, or are you?
No, I know you're on off switch.
Yeah, it's you
I
can
actually-
tell on my controller.
I actually have full variability on mine because I like to feather through the S's. Meanwhile, you somehow race with the equivalent of having a paperclip go between
Between the
the two
terminals.
terminals. And
Well,
really,
in
you just
fairness, if he was going to do that, he would lick the terminals. I mean, you know. Let's be
let the
honest.
speed go through his brain. Really, you're just using that controller to vary your brake. And if you
Pretty
could
much.
By
have...
that I mean full brake.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Why do you use a Professor Motor again?
Why do you use a controller at all?
Yeah.
You just need a second
So
paperclip.
this trigger and spring is a Gen 1. It's the first one I ever bought. Every time I got a new controller, I swapped the
moved it
parts
over,
over because
yeah.
of how good I got that spring.
Yeah, you have
Brian-
a good feel on it. Right?
Brian didn't know what he was doing when he was replacing the guts of his Professor Motor, and Mike was here for this, so we painstakingly removed the trigger
Yeah.
from the controller for no reason.
Because then we discovered
You just
that you
pushed
could
it
move
out.
the board without moving the controller.
You just push it out,
Yeah.
like with your finger.
Yep.
What about you?
I I enjoy the sensation of turbo lag, so I keep my my sensitivity pretty soft so that it all comes on. When I mash it, then it all comes on. But I kind of enjoy being able to stay off the boost, as it were, going through S's.
What's that controller you had that had the same...
The same general shape as...
Well, no, it had to be the same mold. It had to be whatever Professor Motor bought before they started
Slotworks.
producing.
It was called Slotworks.
Slotworks. Maybe Linden.
They were out of Linden. That's how you know it's good. Though I did buy some pierogies made in Linden recently, and they were very good.
Linden's great at making things like Polish food in cans.
And Chevy Corsicas. They were really good at that. They were so good at it.
Did the Beretta come out of that?
Yeah, they made them both there. And then they were... When that car was at the end body stopped existing, they started making GMC Jimmys and Chevy Blazers there. I went there with my Cub Scout troop once and watched them make trucks. Well, you can go to the absence of a Walmart that's there now.
Can you get pierogies there?
No. The ShopRite across the street keeps suing to block the Walmart because ShopRite doesn't like when people know there are other stores, apparently. So...
And to bring it into like very local jokes, it's even like in Jersey City where I live and where Mike works, and I guess we're by the shop right now. You've narrowed down the area of town.
Yeah.
It seems like ShopRite owns multiple food stores in Jersey City now because all of the big food stores still have ShopRite generic stuff in them, even though they have different names.
Can is an everyday thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. The giveaway was when you go to like the one that's in Newport. They call it like some random market, and it's like 20% more than the shop.
Oh, that Morton Williams one.
Yeah.
Yeah. They do actually buy their generic products from ShopRite.
Oh, they buy it from ShopRite. They're not a ShopRite.
So ShopRite, and I can't believe how far we are in the weeds. This is very impressive. ShopRite is a franchise. Most supermarkets are all corporate owned. ShopRite is actually a franchise. But there are also stores that are that don't franchise a name, but just buy their generic products from ShopRite. So there you go.
So now that we've gotten as far away from racing as we humanly can,
regular supermarket reviews.
So Food Town over here,
also a franchise.
Turned into Stop and Shop.
That's right.
Stop and Shop by me is giant.
And the way we're going to bring this back to slot cars is technically shopping carts have four wheels and no fenders.
You could make the argument that the front wheels are tucked underneath the body. So they're like a...
That's not an Indy.
Well,
it could be like a current Indy car where the front wheels are outside of the body.
I was going to say, sometimes the front wheels on Indy cars were narrower than the front wing, weren't they?
Yeah, I guess.
What was that car that ran at Le Mans?
Oh, the Arrow?
Was it?
The Delta Wing?
The Delta Wing, yeah. I think the Arrow is what they called it in racing games where they didn't want to pay to call it the Delta Wing.
They didn't want to pay Ben Bowlby for the word Delta Wing.
Well,
didn't the Delta Wing run in Indy?
No, the concept was developed as a new generation Indy car when they were ready to not run the Delaras from 2003 anymore in 2011.
Yet.
Yeah. So it was developed as one of the designs that they considered for the next gen cars, and it was rejected. And then
they kept racing.
Then they put fenders on it and turned it into a sports car.
And they let it run at Le Mans even though it wasn't in a class. It was just allowed on the track to be a nuisance.
Yeah, pretty much.
Didn't it get to the point where it did do well one year? Like it was actually pretty fast?
Yeah, it actually, was reasonably competitive for a while. But reliability was not.
Reliability and lack of competitive nature, which is always the gag with one-off slot cars as well.
Yeah. What are you racing against?
It's like, oh, it's this car that I've always wanted, but it was made by Carrera and I have nothing to run it against. And for some reason, they didn't make a car for it to run against. They only made the car.
Right. Carrera damn near did that with the 91730. Eventually, they started making a McLaren M8, so you could have two Can-Am cars. But you were like, I'm gonna look at me. I'm Mark Donohue, and I'm racing against Mark Donohue.
I'm racing against Cam 2.
Yeah, I'm racing against my land speed record self on a road course.
Well, that's like whenever we have the Tyco NASCAR race, and you always see the Days of Thunders.
Yeah.
It's the same car like 8 times. It's just different liveries.
Well, same as the Tyco F1, Again, Tyco, and they were stretching of molds.
The Cheviac.
W for Winnacar.
Lumina.
Lumina across your Pontiac split grill.
Yeah, and nowadays, nobody makes NASCAR anything in the slot car world.
I guess that's true, yeah. Because Scale Electric was probably the last company that was making real NASCAR.
It had
SCX,
to
remember?
be...
They made those car tomorrows.
It had to be painful for a slot car company, really any of them, because they're all too small.
Yeah. To pay the licensing costs.
Well, they pay the licensing costs. They negotiate with literally everyone, because you have to negotiate with NASCAR, you have to negotiate with Ford, you have to negotiate with the driver,
sponsor.
you have to negotiate with the sponsor, and then that takes a year. And then the car changes, because of course they change it every year, if not every race.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, NASCAR changes livery. I mean, you see different liveries every race. IndyCar is at that point, too. And,
Are they wrapping the Indy cars now, too?
They're using, I don't know if they're doing full wraps. They're using a lot more vinyl than they used to. Because, I mean, Indy cars were still hand-painted for a long time, as were, at one
Most
time, all race cars
yeah,
were. Because it was lighter than vinyl.
Cars are all wrapped now.
Yeah.
And at the plate tracks, they used to paint them.
Yeah.
That to me is like, it turns it into that one Onion article I like to reference where it's just like, we're not even going to race anymore. It's just going to be billboards on wheels that slowly rotate around the track. No passing, just rotating.
I mean, part of the constant changing of liveries is, I guess, a cost thing for the sponsors, because it's cheaper for the sponsors if they only have to sponsor X number of races instead of the full season. So it might be easier to sell the idea to a sponsor if you say, will you sponsor us for 5 races?
And that harkens back to an argument we've already had, which is, none of us have ever gone out and bought something advertised on a slot car.
No, or a real race car for that matter.
Yeah.
Speak for yourself.
Well, that's true. You bought a career off Tony Stewart's car.
That is true.
But yeah, although we've done the opposite, which is we've bought slot cars because of their livery.
Right. Of course.
Golf.
Well, now we're...
Golf everything.
Yeah, golf everything.
Repeating topic.
I don't think we actually ever let Mike go into his hatred of fake cars that were never, ever, ever sponsored by Golf.
Yeah, I hate that a lot. I understand as a marketing ploy, if you're a slot car manufacturer, that, people will at least give your car a second look if they like the livery, obviously. I mean, everyone in the slot car hobby has bought a car because they like what it looks like. But it's funny because there have been so many actual cars sponsored by Golf over the years. Most of them in the blue livery that we think of. There was the McLaren F1 in the late 90s, rather, that ran at Le Mans in the dark blue Golf livery and won.
The GT40 was that dark blue.
Yeah. And the early McLarens were sponsored by Golf, but they were McLaren orange.
And there were also moments of Golf getting super fancy with their livery, like the Aston Martins in Le Mans, where it was like mostly white and it was all ripped up, but it was still Golf. I know Golf doesn't sell any gasoline anymore in the States.
It is now a name you can franchise for independent gas stations. Like, you will see, there are some Golf stations out there, but there is no, they don't have a product.
It's just like Hess, yeah.
Yeah, they just have gas.
They're still around.
Hess became Speedway.
But Hess still exists as a name because of the toys.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hess also still exists, again, getting way off topic, as an oil company, like drilling for oil, but they don't do anything downstream of refining. They don't do any refining or gas stations.
Was there,
anymore.
I know a Hess livery in my mind only because of the toys, but was there ever, legitimate race cars sponsored by Hess?
I can't think of one.
No.
The only white and green cars like that I can think of that was a fairly common livery was Skoal. I can't think of... Hess would have been a good racing livery, though.
Harry Gant would have loved it.
It's one of those things where a lot of petrol companies did advertise and still do advertise on cars, but Hess was pretty local. Hess was corporate headquarters was in Jersey, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And Leon Hess owned the New York Jets.
Yeah.
And he changed their colors to green and white to match his gas stations. So, it's true.
Look it up.
But that goes down as a car you never saw. You never saw a Hess car outside of like, oh, this year we're doing generic Indy car. It's on the back of a generic pickup truck, and
because you can fit a race car into the bed of a pickup truck.
That's weird though, because now like when you see like race, getting back to the supermarkets again, when the NASCAR comes to Pocono, you see like a lot of cars have local liveries and stuff like that.
well, yeah, because again, like Mike said, if you are trying to sell a sponsorship to your race car, and I'm really thinking hard right now of who makes the money in racing these days, because in HO racing, it's the team or the store that's making the money in racing, and in real racing, it's not the teams, because most of the teams don't make money. Right. It's the running gag, like, how do you make a small fortune in racing?
Start with a large one.
Yeah. It's not really the sponsors, because as we've proven time and time again, no one buys any
Which,
of this
by the way,
stuff.
is I think why it's so hard to sell sponsorships now as a race team. Because, 30 years ago, you could say, look, your name will be on a race car. It'll be very exciting. There's no way to measure whether it has any effect. Now there are so many other forms of marketing where you can measure whether they're working.
Super targeted forms of
Yeah,
marketing.
like
too,
you can tell whether it's working, and you can tell whether the people looking at it are the customers you're looking for. It's a lot harder to sell and be like, yeah, but your name will be on a race car. I mean, I would go for that if I had the money, of course, but...
What would you
Think
even
about
advertise?
it. Instead of like sponsoring
BT.
a car you know would run mid-pack all week, imagine if you know a guy that would just wreck the car every single week. He'd get on TV, cause spectacular accidents. That name, BT. He's on the hood of the car that just totally plastered like a champion or something.
Yeah, who is sponsoring Kyle Petty these days?
He still wears the hat with the number taped over.
Yeah, that's
He's bitter. He's on. I think he does some of the NBC coverage, which is horrendous.
I was trying to think
But
of
does
like
he have any fear?
Kyle Petty. So the joke you just heard, Kyle Petty's No Fear Racing, was a Wikipedia article that was written by the saltiest of NASCAR fans.
God, are you mad if we reviewed that game?
Go close this window because you're not enjoying this anyway. Open up a new tab. Go to Wikipedia. Oh, you already closed it, so you're not listening. But anyway, go there. Look up Kyle Petty's No Fear Racing, but go to the history tab.
Yeah, Wayback Machine.
Because you can just go to the history tab on the Wikipedia page.
Oh, really?
And find go back through the edit history, find an old version of it, and prepare for comedy gold. Because yes, the saltiest of the salty. Maybe it was Dave Marcus who drove the Mr. Salt car for a long time.
I know Realtree because of how many times he wrecked that car.
There you go. Basically did what you'll see me doing on the BTE site, only about why slot car versions of real cars are terrible. Basically nailed 95 theses to the cathedral door of Kyle Petty's No Fear Racing about how it was wrong, in that it just did not depict NASCAR, accurately, including that if you had turbo boosters on your person or on your car,
You would be arrested and beaten immediately.
Your reputation in the sport community is on the line.
So if you
Just
Every
a
time
player
you put a
too.
turbo in a person.
So if you ever hear us say something along the lines of, are those turbo boosters on your person, or are you just detrimental to stock car racing, now you know why.
I mean, the other person I wanted to make a gag against, if we were going to say who would go in and crash all the time, would have been Boris Said.
Ooh. What did Boris say? I will go in and crash.
Who is all... Shit, it was also sponsored by No Fear energy drinks.
Yeah, that's right. Because he
ran for Roush those couple of years and had the No Fear logo on the car.
He and Ernie Irvan, I believe, when they started racing on the West Coast, were friends with the No Fear guys. Like I think they raced together early in their careers.
Ernie Irvan had a fear, all right.
Michigan.
The state.
It looks like an oven mitt, and it hates me.
Just rolling hills. Oh, yeah.
I just remember, I haven't watched very many NASCAR races in my life. I can't get through them. But I just
brain
remember...
probably looks like the Skittles rainbow right now.
And he's tasting it as we speak.
He's twitching because someone's actually talking about him. He has to scour the internet.
He's
really
tasting
like
the rainbow and smelling burnt toast and wondering what's going on.
Oh my god. I really liked Ernie Irvan because I thought the Skittles car was the coolest painted at the time, so that was my...
Well, it's interesting. I liked him earlier in his career when he had the Kodak car that had the like metallic gold strip on the side of it.
The car that was
Kodak
coincidentally
gold.
somewhat thinner than all the rest.
Yes, that is correct.
Oh, did he make a
cheater
two...
car? Yeah.
Oh,
there's cheater cars everywhere, but
those were the cheater cars because Sterling Marlin won with them
yes,
too.
Sterling Marlin's only career wins were with those cars. So.
Well, sometimes racing is about who can cheat better, so...
Well, Sterling Marlin also got out of his car that one time and pulled on the fender and then said, I don't know what you're talking about.
This isn't a toupee. I don't know what you're talking about.
Flies away.
My dad Cuckoo would have done that.
Yes, that is a man's name. There is a man, or there was a man, whose name was Cuckoo Marlin. And now
He
he's
looked
dead.
like a fish. Is he?
Yeah.
Is there any other racing people who won't listen to this we can piss off? I mean, we don't have many...
We just go at the track in Michigan.
Chip Ganassi is fat. Nobody ever seems to address that, oddly enough. I mean, he owns a team in every type of racing except F1, pretty much.
He ate Felix Sabates, that's why it's just Chip Ganassi now.
And nobody ever seems willing to address this fact, so I put it out there. Chip Ganassi, not a thin man.
He looks like a younger AJ Foyt.
Also fat. And he was fat when he was still
How did he
racing.
fit
I don't
in
know how
the
he fit in the car.
Don't you have to be able to get out in a certain number of seconds too for safety regulations?
In theory, but as Paul Page would have told you back then, he was the grand champion, so it didn't matter.
If the movie Driven taught you anything about getting out of a car, that you can have a broken foot and still race in the kart series.
I'm not sure that Driven taught us anything other than Sylvester Stallone shouldn't be allowed to make movies, but...
Or drive champ.
And then we had to wait for Richie Cunningham to make an F1 movie that was actually serviceable.
Yeah.
And
Probably
by that mean make everyone hate Nicky Lauda.
Probably the only decent racing movie of my lifetime. I've had this thought before. I mean, Days of Thunder, I guess, was okay.
I like Days of Thunder. I grew up on that movie.
Yeah. Tom Cruise.
Just sit there and drink my Mellow Yellow.
Yeah.
Must drink soda.
I have a sudden urge to drink Mellow Yellow and use Superflow in my car because I hate my stomach and my car.
That Superflow car racing against that Exxon car.
Yeah, that weren't even teammates.
God, I really want a Hardee's burger right now. Or a Carl's Jr.
Depending on what state I live in.
Carl's Jr. Fuck you.
Send your hate mail too.
No, from the movie Idiocracy.
Oh, yes.
You were an unfit mother. Your child is now property of Carl's Jr. Fuck you. I mean it.
It's been a while since I've seen Idiocracy.
Would you like to try our extra big-ass taco? Now with more molecules.
So, in conclusion, if you want to race competitively, do it.
We got nowhere near the top.
Nobody's stopping you.
Well, what we did is
Or if you want to sit in the basement and talk about how fat Chip Ganassi is, go for it.
What we accomplished here is we got Kevin back, regressed a solid 8 weeks worth of...
Yeah, we had gotten pretty good at staying somewhat on topic, but...
We flew off the chain this week.
I guess the question is whether you would consider that falling off the chain or this falling off the chain.
I think at this point we're so far afield we're ending up in other sporting events.
We've chucked the ball into the gutter so hard that it hit the pins on the next lane.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I think I'm going to go ahead and call this one, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Do you use alley balls or do you have your own?
I use alley balls.
Do you wax an alley ball?
No. I show up and I just chuck it at the pins. And then I remember I had shoulder surgery and I
Leave the bowling alley.
Yeah.
I always just try to throw the ball really hard. It doesn't matter if it goes in the gutter or not. It's my idea is just break the damn pin. And then throw it at the gate.
And now we're on to bowling. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm calling it, guys. Thanks for taking us on this wonderful journey here. Maybe next time when we have Kevin, we'll get somewhat on topic. I'm lying. You know I'm lying.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy Mike's funny joke now.